Welcome to another installment of How to Rap a Verse. In the first lesson, we talked about how to establish your rhythm, and in this lesson, we're going to build off of that and start talking about how to establish your flow. So without further ado, let's get it! What's up, everybody? This is Mize with ColeMizeStudios.com, bringing you another segment of Be a Better Rapper Now. Now, before we dive in and start coming up with flows, let's cover just a little bit of groundwork. Oftentimes, I have people ask me the question, what's the difference between your cadence and your flow? And well, there isn't a difference. They're the same thing. Flow is actually just a slang word for cadence. In fact, the musical definition for cadence is rhythmic flow of a sequence of sounds or words. In rapping, cadence is like your syllables dance routine to music. And just like most choreographed dance routines, the movements don't stay the same throughout the whole set. They change, they build, they evolve. And the same applies to rappers' cadences. It's common to see a rapper's flow change every 2 to 4 bars. Now you may be wondering, if cadence is rhythmic flow, then what's the difference between rhythm and cadence? Well, technically there isn't a difference, and they're just synonyms of one another. However, in my efforts to try to make things as least complicated as possible, I typically use the word rhythm when I'm referring to staying on beat, and I'll use the word cadence when I'm talking about your flow. So in summary, when it comes to rapping, I like to think of rhythm as your ability to stay on beat, and cadence is the way that you dance and move around on beat. Now, how in the world can you come up with your own cadences? It's actually quite simple. It's the same way that a drummer, guitar, or piano player get really good at playing their instruments. You simply learn and practice your favorite songs. And it's much easier to remember information when it's done to music. That's why huge companies like Coca-Cola and McDonald's create jingles to music to get it stuck in your head. And it's also the same reason why learning songs is a very effective teaching method when it comes to young children. So if you want to start coming up with cadences, start by memorizing some of your favorite rappers' lyrics to their music. Because if you memorize their lyrics, you will also be memorizing their cadences. And you probably already done this more than you realize. The more cadences that you learn, the more diverse and flexible your flow will start to become. As you start to learn many different ways that you can dance with your syllables and move around in the music. A good exercise for doing this is just start by learning 4 bars of one of your favorite rappers' songs. And then practice rapping those lyrics over many different types of beats. And once you learn those 4 bars really good, then go back and either learn 4 more bars of that song or pick an entirely different song. And remember, always start by establishing your rhythm first to ensure that you're locking on to the beat. And you can do this on the go to any type of music that you may encounter throughout the day. And if you'd like to learn some of my memorization techniques, check out this article. And if you'd like to see me practicing 3 different rappers' cadences to the same beat, make sure you check out my previous video on creating cadences. And there will be links to all these in the video's description. It's also important to note that you don't necessarily have to memorize their lyrics in order to memorize their cadences. So do whatever is easiest for you. And pay close attention to how they're catching the beat. Are they starting on top of the first beat, starting at the end of the bar before and leading into the first beat? Or are they starting after the first beat? For a more in-depth look at this, make sure you check out my previous video, Catching the Beat. Now, once you start rapping 4 bars of your favorite rapper's songs to different music, you're going to quickly realize how the different tempos of music drastically affect your flow. The slower the tempo of a song is, the more room there will be within each bar. And vice versa. The faster the tempo of a song is, the least amount of space that there will be within each bar. So if you're trying to rap the lyrics to like a mid-tempo song to a much slower song, then you're going to have to slow down your cadence in order to fit everything on beat. And if you're trying to rap lyrics to a mid-tempo song to a much faster song, then you're going to have to speed up your cadence in order to stay on beat. Just play around with rapping the same lyrics to different types of music to practice adjusting your flow to different tempos. One final thing that's important to understand about cadence is there's 3 ways to fill in each bar. The most obvious is your syllable count. The more syllables that you place within the bar, the faster your flow is going to be. The fewer syllables that you have within the bar, the more room you have to move around, and likely the slower that your flow is going to be. Another factor that's played in how the bar is filled up is sustained words and stressed syllables. Some 1-syllable words need more room than others, because they have to be held or sustained longer in order to be emphasized clearly. For example, the word break will require more room than the word go, even though they're both only one syllable. And sometimes you may just want to sustain a word longer just to complement the flow that you're going for. And some words contain stressed syllables that may require just a little bit extra room to emphasize them as well, such as the word splendid. Splen is the stressed syllable and requires just a little extra room in order to emphasize it clearly. The third element that fills up bars are breaths and pauses. You need to breathe often so you don't gas out and run out of breath. You need to work your breath and pauses in just like you would work your syllables in to create your flow. Breathing and pausing is just as important as the syllable count and the sustained words and stressed syllables. I typically like to breathe during each bar. Usually I'll breathe at the beginning of a bar or at the end of the bar, or even sometimes in the middle if the cadence that I'm going for calls for it. Every now and then I may rap a few bars without breathing and then return back to breathing every bar. I usually do this when I'm wanting to change up my cadence and just add more aggression to the track. And if you want to look a little bit deeper into breathing techniques, then make sure you watch my previous video called Breathing Techniques. Now, my favorite way to come up with flows for a song that I'm working on is doing something called scatting. Scatting is basically just a way to freestyle cadences. When you're scatting, you're not saying real words. You're basically just mumbling gibberish to different flows. This is where you tap into all the cadences that you've already learned and you start playing around with them, manipulating and forming and shaping them to the beat of the music, almost like clay. And scatting isn't something you have to think too much about. It's more about feeling the track out. It's like a freestyle dance that you're doing with your mouth. You're accessing all the different moves, cadences, that you've learned from previous songs, and you're auditioning them to see what works and putting your own twist to them. And once you come up with several different cadences that you like, while they're still fresh on your mind, feel free to record them on whatever mobile device that you may have handy. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and come up with a few different cadences for our verse, and then let's analyze and see what makes them different. All right, now just to prevent any type of confusion while I'm explaining these cadences, here's a quick explanation of what we'll actually be looking at. Now there's 4 beats in one bar. A quarter note section is the space that makes up each one of those beats. The first and third quarter note sections are colored in gray, and the second and fourth quarter note sections are colored in red. There are 4 16th notes in each quarter note section, and the first 16th note in each quarter note section is landing directly on top of the beat. Okay, first things first, I'm just going to play the beat, establish my rhythm, come up with some cadences, and then we'll start actually dissecting those cadences here in just a moment. All right, let's get it. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and butter 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 bitter butter bad but be the butter bow batter wanna bad but be the butter bow batter wanna be the wanna be batter with dab the battery was hold the be below pap the cap the bap dabado pap the bap dab the bap the bap dabado bit of dabado happy the bob the babado happy the batter but the banana but the babado had of a tap the pap dabado the bap that had a batter on the bap the bap the bap had the bap Peter on the bap the pap Peter on the batter on the beater on the bab that. Alright, now the first cadence that I've decided to use is really simple. I'm basically just going to be using the 16 count, but eliminating 2 notes, which gives me a total of 14 notes. I'm pausing on top of the first beat and also taking a breath right after the 4th beat. And just something interesting to note here, since I'm going to be taking a breath at the very end of the 4th beat, and I'm also going to be taking a breath on the first beat of the next measure, those 2 sections actually run together. So I'm actually getting just a little bit extra space from both of those because I'm getting both of those 16th notes to breathe. So which is the equivalent of an 8th note. Now, if we were to tweak our butter 16 count to actually match this cadence, this is what it would sound like. Butter 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 butter, 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 butter. Bubba dubba 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 dubba. Butter, 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 butter. Now the second cadence that I've come up with is pretty simple as well. I'm still really close to the 16 count, but now I'm eliminating 3 notes. I'm pausing on the 4th 16th note of the 1st, 2nd, and 4th quarter note section. This is causing me to have a triplet flow for the first 2 beats and a steady 16 count flow for the 3rd and 4th beats. Just like the first cadence that I came up with where I take a breath at the very end of the 4th beat. If we were to tweak our butter butter 16 count to match this cadence, this is what it will sound like. Butter butter, 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 butter butter. Now the third cadence I've constructed isn't complex either. All I'm doing is landing directly on top of the first beat and taking a quick pause on the 16th note right after it. Then I'm doing a steady 16 count cadence, starting from the 3rd 16th note of the 1st quarter note section and ending it right before the 4th beat. And for this cadence, I'm going to drag the last 16th note out just a little bit so it drags a little bit over onto the 4th beat. And if we were to tweak our butter butter 16 count to match this cadence, this is what it will sound like. Butter 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 butter, butter 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 butter, butter 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 butter, butter 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 butter. Now the 4th cadence that I came up with is just a little bit tricky because I added a swing in the middle of it. By swing, I just mean that I intentionally go off beat just ever so slightly to add a little bit of character to the flow. For a more in-depth look at creating swing, make sure you check out my video on adding character to cadence. So in essence, all I'm doing is filling in the 16th notes for the 1st quarter note section. Then I begin my swing directly on top of the 2nd beat. I then swing 1 16th note between the 2nd and 3rd 16th note of the 2nd quarter note section. And then I end my swing by landing on the 4th 16th note of the 2nd quarter note section. Then I take a short pause on the 3rd beat and fill in the rest of the 16th notes until I take a pause on the 4th 16th note of the 4th quarter note section. And if we were to tweak our butter butter 16 count to actually match this cadence, it would sound something like this. Butter butter bup 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 butter butter butter, butter butter bup 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 butter butter butter, butter butter bup 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 butter butter butter, butter butter bup 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 butter butter butter. It sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. If these specifics confuse you, that's completely okay. Don't get caught up on all the specifics of where each breath and each note is hitting in relation to the 16 count. Remember, I learned these cadences at some point during my life simply by ear. This is just an in-depth breakdown to show you how all the subtle adjustments to the 16 count can make a huge difference in your flow. And in the next lesson, we're going to start bringing these cadences to life and start translating them into meaningful lyrics. So make sure that you stay tuned because we're going to learn a lot and we're going to have a lot of fun. If this is your first time being here, make yourself at home and get you a free copy of my ebook, The #1 Fundamental to Rapping. This will also sign you up to my newsletter, and I send out 1 email per week with all the new content that I've created, and it gets sent directly to you. You don't have to go anywhere looking for it. And you'll also get 5 practice beats when you sign up, including the beat that you heard in this video, and also a really cool tool that I created called Bar Sheets. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, drop your 2 cents in the comment section below. There's the subscribe button, and down there is a video playlist with all the how to rap videos that I have done in chronological order for your viewing pleasure. This is Cole Mize of ColeMizeStudios.com bringing you another segment of Be a Better Rapper Now. And remember, in rapping, there's no rules, there's only techniques. Peace.